Have you ever asked yourself, why do I still feel empty even though I have everything I ever wanted? In today's world, we often believe that material wealth, fame, or achievements are the keys to happiness. But the more people chase these, the further they seem from true peace. Could it be that we're looking for peace in all the wrong places? Buddhism teaches that genuine happiness and peace don't come from external possessions but arise from the stillness within. The Buddha once said, "Happiness does not depend on what you have but on how you think." The things we pursue, money, power, status, are temporary. Relying on them to find peace is like trying to hold water in your hands. It inevitably slips away. Picture yourself standing before a lake. When the wind blows, the surface ripples, distorting everything it reflects. But when the wind ceases, the water becomes calm and clear, revealing the true image of everything around it. Our minds are like that lake. If stirred by greed, anger, or ignorance, we cannot see clearly or find peace. But when we learn to calm our minds, peace naturally emerges. Buddhism doesn't ask us to renounce everything and live in austerity. Instead, the Buddha advises us to use material possessions mindfully and not let them control us. Rather than aiming to accumulate more, learn to find joy in simple things, a warm meal, a kind word, or the beauty of the present moment. Peace doesn't come from how much we acquire but from how much we can let go. By letting go of unrealistic expectations, comparisons, and the constant need to prove ourselves, our minds become lighter, and true peace begins to flourish. What truly brings you a sense of peace? Do you rely on external things to feel happy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories and insights may inspire others on their journey to peace. If you found this content helpful, please like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss more profound lessons from Buddhism. Thank you for watching, and may you find lasting peace within. Part 1. What is inner peace? In the relentless flow of modern life, we often seek peace through external achievements, a grand house, a dream job, or the recognition of others. But why do so many people, even after reaching the pinnacle of wealth or status, still feel unfulfilled? Buddhism teaches that true peace does not come from the external world but exists within each individual. The concept of inner peace in Buddhism. According to the teachings of the Buddha, inner peace is a state of serenity and mental stability, free from the disturbances of greed, desire, hatred, anger, and ignorance, delusion. It is freedom from illusions and mental suffering, where the mind rests fully in the present moment, unburdened by the past or the future. Buddhism describes inner peace as a still lake. When the wind stops blowing, the lake reflects everything around it clearly and truthfully. Similarly, the human mind can only see its true nature and the world clearly when freed from turbulence and defilements. The roots of inner turmoil. Inner turmoil arises from deep-seated causes, which Buddhism refers to as the 5 hindrances. 1. Sensory desire, the craving to possess or experience pleasurable things. 2. Ill will, feelings of hatred, resentment, or anger when desires are unmet. 3. Sloth and torpor, a state of mental dullness or fatigue. 4. Restlessness and worry, persistent anxiety and inability to settle. 5. Doubt, a lack of confidence in oneself and life. When these 5 hindrances dominate the mind, peace becomes elusive, and suffering takes hold. Inner peace does not depend on external circumstances. One of Buddhism's most profound lessons is the realization that peace does not rely on external conditions. A person may live amid hardship and scarcity yet feel at peace, while another with every material possession may remain anxious and dissatisfied. The Buddha once told the story of a wealthy king who, despite ruling a vast kingdom, was plagued by worry and unrest. The Buddha explained that although the king owned everything, his mind was clouded by fears and desires. In contrast, a forest monk who had no possessions lived in deep happiness, having discovered a sense of completeness within himself. Inner peace is about letting go of external attachments, accepting life's impermanence, and living with the understanding that everything is in constant flux. Cultivating inner peace through mind training. Buddhism offers numerous methods to cultivate inner peace, focusing on 3 key aspects. 1. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in each moment. When your mind is not distracted by thoughts of the past or future, you can experience the peace that exists here and now. For instance, when drinking a cup of tea, focus on its taste and warmth rather than on unfinished tasks. 2. Meditation. Meditation is a vital practice for training the mind. Through meditation, we learn to observe thoughts and emotions without judgment, releasing ourselves from their negative grip. A dedicated meditation practice helps reveal that suffering is temporary and surmountable. 3. Living with compassion and wisdom. Peace is not just a mental state, it is also reflected in how we treat ourselves and others. The Buddha taught that compassion is the key to unlocking the door to peace. When you act with kindness and understanding, your mind becomes lighter and more harmonious. Signs of inner peace. A person who achieves inner peace often exhibits the following traits. They are not swayed by external praise or criticism. They face challenges with calmness and clarity. They do not feel envy or regret about what has passed. They find joy in the small, simple moments of everyday life. Buddhist lessons on inner peace. Peace is not something you search for outside of yourself, it is the result of an inward journey. The Buddha once said, "Conquering yourself is a greater victory than conquering thousands in battle." Instead of trying to control uncontrollable external factors, focus on mastering your mind. Practices for everyday inner peace. Start your day with mindfulness. Before getting out of bed, take a few minutes to breathe deeply and connect with your body and mind. Learn to let go. When faced with difficulties, ask yourself, will this matter a year from now? The answer often helps reduce stress. Cultivate gratitude. Take time each day to reflect on things you are grateful for. Gratitude helps you realize that your life is already abundant. Inner peace is not a distant goal but a state that anyone can achieve by nurturing the mind. Don't let the outside world dictate your happiness. True peace only emerges when you turn inward. Let go of distractions, and live fully in the present moment. Questions for you. What does inner peace mean to you? What is holding you back from finding peace within yourself? Part 2. Why material wealth cannot bring lasting peace. In our modern world, the pursuit of material wealth often dominates our lives. We equate possessions with happiness and success, believing that once we acquire a bigger house, a luxurious car, or financial security, we will finally feel at peace. Yet, despite amassing great fortunes, countless individuals remain restless, anxious, and unfulfilled. According to Buddhism, this is because material wealth, by its very nature, cannot provide true and lasting peace. The impermanence of material wealth. Buddhism teaches that everything in this world, including material possessions, is impermanent, anicca. No matter how much we acquire, these possessions are subject to change, decay, or loss. They may be destroyed by time, natural disasters, theft, or unforeseen circumstances. This impermanence ensures that when we attach our sense of stability and happiness to material things, we set ourselves up for disappointment and suffering. The Buddha illustrated this truth through the parable of a sandcastle. A child builds a beautiful castle on the shore, pouring all their energy and joy into its creation. But as the tide comes in, the waves inevitably wash it away. The child's joy turns to sorrow because their happiness was tied to something inherently transient. Similarly, when we place our trust in material wealth, we expose ourselves to fear, anxiety, and suffering when those possessions are threatened or lost. The illusion of fulfillment through possessions. Material wealth often provides a fleeting sense of satisfaction, but this feeling is short-lived. Consider the excitement of buying a new gadget, car, or home. At first, we feel a rush of joy and accomplishment, but over time, the novelty fades. What once brought happiness becomes ordinary. And we find ourselves yearning for the next purchase to fill the void. Buddhism refers to this cycle as tanha, or craving. Craving is like drinking salt water to quench thirst. It may provide momentary relief, but it ultimately leaves us more parched than before. Instead of finding peace, we become trapped in a cycle of endless desire, always seeking more and never feeling truly content. The emotional burden of materialism. Ironically, material wealth can create additional stress rather than alleviate it. The more possessions we accumulate, the more energy we expend protecting, maintaining, and worrying about them. This emotional burden detracts from our ability to live in the present moment. For example, someone who owns an expensive car might feel a mix of pride and fear. They may constantly worry about scratches, theft, or depreciation, turning what should be a source of joy into a source of anxiety. This constant vigilance over possessions weighs heavily on the mind, making inner peace difficult to achieve. The Buddha taught that the more we own, the more we are owned by our possessions. True freedom comes not from acquiring more, but from letting go of attachments to things that bind us. The difference between comfort and peace. It is important to distinguish between comfort and peace. Material wealth can undoubtedly provide comfort. It can shield us from harsh conditions, provide access to better opportunities, and ease daily struggles. However, comfort is not synonymous with peace. Peace is a state of mind, independent of external circumstances. It is possible to live in luxury and feel utterly restless, just as it is possible to have very little and feel profoundly at ease. Peace arises from understanding and mastering the mind, not from accumulating possessions. The Buddha's own life exemplifies this principle. Born a prince, Siddhartha Gautama had access to unimaginable wealth and privilege. Yet, he abandoned his palace and renounced his material comforts in search of enlightenment. His journey revealed that peace is found through inner cultivation, not external accumulation. Letting go of material attachments. Buddhism does not advocate for poverty or rejecting all possessions. Instead, it teaches us to adopt a balanced approach, one where we use material resources wisely without becoming attached to them. Letting go of material attachments begins with shifting our perspective. We can view possessions as tools to support our well-being and the well-being of others, rather than as sources of identity or security. This shift allows us to appreciate what we have without clinging to it. The Buddha's teaching on generosity, dana, provides a practical way to loosen our attachment to material wealth. By giving freely to others, we learn to see possessions as transient and to cultivate a sense of abundance within ourselves. Generosity not only benefits the recipient but also liberates the giver from the grip of greed and attachment. Inner wealth versus outer wealth. Buddhism emphasizes the cultivation of inner wealth, qualities like compassion, wisdom, mindfulness, and patience, that cannot be taken away by external forces. These inner treasures provide a lasting sense of fulfillment and peace that material wealth can never offer. The Buddha once said, "Riches take wings, only wisdom stays with us." While material possessions come and go, the virtues we develop within ourselves remain a constant source of strength and joy. Practical steps to reduce material attachment. 1. Practice gratitude. Regularly reflect on what you already have and express gratitude for it. This helps counteract the tendency to focus on what is lacking. 2. Simplify your life. Consider adopting a minimalist lifestyle, where you prioritize experiences and relationships over possessions. 3. Give generously. Share your resources with others, whether through charity, acts of kindness, or supporting community initiatives. 4. Cultivate mindfulness. be present in each moment, appreciating life's simple pleasures rather than seeking fulfillment in acquisitions. 5. Reflect on impermanence. Remind yourself that all things, including material possessions, are temporary. This perspective helps reduce attachment and anxiety. Material wealth, while useful, cannot provide the lasting peace we seek. Its impermanence ensures that relying on it for happiness leads to disappointment and suffering. True peace arises from within. Through understanding the nature of reality, cultivating inner wealth, and letting go of attachments. The next time you find yourself chasing after material possessions, pause and ask, will this truly bring me peace, or is it just a fleeting satisfaction? By turning inward and focusing on what truly matters, you can free yourself from the endless cycle of craving and discover the profound peace that lies within. Part 3. Does fame truly bring happiness? In our modern society, many people place their happiness in the pursuit of fame, recognition, and admiration from others. We often hear stories of individuals who seem to have it all, the fame, the accolades, the prestige, and assume that their lives are perfect. Yet, upon closer examination, we realize that fame, like material wealth, is fleeting, fragile, and often deceptive. According to Buddhist teachings, true happiness does not lie in the external validation we receive, but in the understanding of our own true nature. The illusion of fame and recognition. Fame and recognition are constructs of the mind and society, constantly shifting and changing. One day, a person may be celebrated as a hero or a role model, and the next, they could be forgotten or even criticized. In Buddhism, this impermanence, anicca, is a fundamental truth of existence. Fame, like all things, is impermanent. No matter how hard we try to cling to it, it will eventually fade. The Buddha himself lived a life that exemplified the wisdom of renouncing fame and recognition. As a prince, Siddhartha Gautama had every opportunity to be celebrated and admired. Yet, he abandoned this life of luxury and prestige to seek enlightenment. Understanding that true peace could never be found in external validation. His teachings continue to emphasize that clinging to fame or status is a root cause of suffering, as it is based on the ego and the ever-changing nature of the world. The danger of identifying with external praise. One of the key dangers of seeking fame and recognition is that we begin to base our self-worth on external approval. This creates a fragile sense of identity that is dependent on the opinions of others. When we receive praise, we feel uplifted and validated. When we face criticism or neglect, our self-esteem crumbles. Buddhism teaches that attachment to external validation is a form of craving, tanha. This craving feeds the ego, which in turn leads to a cycle of constant seeking and dissatisfaction. The more we seek approval from others, the more we become entangled in the belief that our value is defined by others' opinions. This dependence on external sources for our sense of worth only exacerbates the fear of judgment and rejection, leading to anxiety, insecurity, and inner conflict. True happiness comes from self-understanding. In contrast, the Buddha taught that true happiness comes not from seeking external approval, but from a deep understanding of our own true nature. Happiness, according to Buddhist philosophy, is not something we acquire through external means, but something we cultivate from within. When we understand our true self, beyond the labels and identities that society imposes on us, we begin to experience freedom from the fluctuating judgments of others. This freedom is a natural consequence of the practice of mindfulness, sati, which allows us to become aware of our thoughts, emotions, and attachments without identifying with them. Through mindfulness, we can see that our true nature is not defined by fame, status, or approval, but by the inner peace and wisdom that arise from understanding the impermanence of all things. The trap of ego and the pursuit of fame. The pursuit of fame often stems from the desire to fulfill an unmet need within the ego. We may seek fame to feel important, valued, or powerful. The Buddha, However, recognize that the ego is the source of much suffering. It creates division between the self and others, leading to jealousy, pride, and resentment. The desire for fame reinforces the illusion of separateness, as we define ourselves in contrast to others. We may become attached to the idea of being better or more important than others, which only fuels our desire for recognition. But this attachment to ego-based desires prevents us from experiencing true happiness, which is rooted in humility, compassion, and self-awareness. In Buddhism, humility is considered an essential virtue. True happiness arises when we let go of the need for external validation and come to terms with our inherent worth. By recognizing that we are already complete, we free ourselves from the need to prove our value through fame or recognition. Instead, we begin to cultivate inner peace, which remains unshaken regardless of how the world views us. The paradox of fame, recognition and isolation. Ironically, fame often leads to isolation rather than connection. Those who attain fame may find themselves surrounded by admirers, but still feel profoundly alone. The fear of being judged or criticized can prevent them from forming deep, genuine relationships. The more we invest in external validation, the more we risk losing our connection to our authentic selves and to others. The Buddha emphasized the importance of Sangha, the community of like-minded individuals, as a source of support and connection. True fulfillment comes not from seeking recognition from the masses, but from fostering relationships based on mutual understanding, compassion, and respect. These are the relationships that nourish the heart and mind, offering a deeper sense of happiness than the fleeting applause of the crowd. The path to freedom from fame and recognition. The path to freedom from the cycle of seeking fame and recognition begins with self-awareness and detachment. By practicing mindfulness and reflecting on the impermanence of all things, we begin to loosen our attachment to external validation. We realize that our worth is not dependent on the opinions of others, but on the integrity with which we live our lives. Buddhism teaches us that true freedom comes from letting go of the need to prove ourselves. We can still contribute to the world and make a positive impact, but without the desire for praise or recognition. Our actions should be motivated by compassion and a genuine desire to help others, rather than by a need to bolster our ego or seek approval. Embracing the true self. Fame and recognition, while appealing, can never bring lasting happiness. They are based on external factors that are transient and often outside of our control. True happiness arises from understanding our own nature, letting go of the ego, and cultivating inner peace. When we stop seeking validation from the world, we become free to live authentically, guided by compassion, wisdom, and mindfulness. As the Buddha wisely said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. True happiness begins when we embrace our own worth, without needing external validation. By understanding that fame and recognition are fleeting, we can choose to focus on what truly matters, our inner peace and the well-being of others. Part 4. The root of inner peace. In our fast-paced, often chaotic world, we are constantly seeking ways to find peace. Many of us look outside ourselves for answers, hoping that the right conditions, material possessions, or achievements will bring us a sense of lasting tranquility. However, according to Buddhist teachings, true inner peace is not something we can attain by grasping at external objects or circumstances. It is, in fact, a state of mind, rooted in understanding the impermanent and interconnected nature of all things, and in the cultivation of mindfulness. The illusion of external sources of peace. In Buddhist philosophy, we are taught that everything in this world is impermanent, anicca. The things we accumulate, the success we strive for, and even the relationships we cherish are all subject to change. This impermanence means that no external condition can provide lasting peace. When we attach our happiness and peace to external things, whether it's wealth, status, or relationships, we are essentially building our sense of security on shifting sands. As soon as these things change or disappear, so too does our peace. This attachment is born from ignorance, avidya, which is the root cause of suffering. We mistakenly believe that the things outside of us can bring us lasting happiness, not realizing that everything in the material world is fleeting and uncertain. As long as we cling to these illusions, we will never experience true peace, because our minds will always be in a state of grasping and yearning. The role of mindfulness in cultivating inner peace. Mindfulness, sati, is a powerful practice in Buddhism that helps us develop awareness of the present moment. It is a tool to bring our attention away from the distractions of the past or the future and into the here and now. By practicing mindfulness, we learn to observe our thoughts, emotions, and actions without getting swept away by them. We begin to recognize the impermanence of our mental and emotional states, understanding that nothing lasts forever. Through mindfulness, we also develop a deeper understanding of the three marks of existence: impermanence, suffering, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. When we truly understand that all things are impermanent, we are less likely to cling to them, and we can begin to let go. When we see that suffering is an inherent part of existence, we can stop fighting against it and start embracing it with equanimity. And when we realize that there is no permanent, unchanging self, we stop identifying with our transient thoughts and feelings, allowing us to experience a deep sense of freedom and peace. The understanding of non-self and letting go. The concept of non-self, anatta, is a key teaching in Buddhism and one of the most profound understandings that leads to inner peace. It suggests that the self, the I, or me, is not a permanent, independent entity, but rather a collection of ever-changing physical and mental elements. When we cling to the idea of a permanent self, we create a false sense of identity that is vulnerable to suffering. We become attached to our desires, our opinions, our image in the eyes of others, and our past experiences, all of which are fleeting. Recognizing the impermanence and non-substantial nature of the self allows us to let go of these attachments. We stop holding on so tightly to the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. In doing so, we release the grip of ego, and with it, the sources of anxiety, stress, and fear. The more we practice letting go, the more we experience the freedom that comes from not being bound by our identity. The root of true inner peace is found in this release, a release of attachment to both external objects and internal concepts of self. The freedom found in acceptance. True peace comes not from trying to control everything or holding on to what we cannot keep, but from the deep acceptance of things as they are. This is one of the core teachings of Buddhism, to accept the present moment, just as it is. When we stop resisting reality and instead embrace it with awareness, we open ourselves to the possibility of inner peace. This does not mean we should passively accept suffering or injustice in the world, but rather that we should accept the reality of the present moment and our ability to respond to it with wisdom and compassion. Acceptance means recognizing that everything, including our difficulties and challenges, is part of the unfolding of life. When we cease to struggle against what is, we release the mental tension that keeps us from finding peace. We let go of the need to control every aspect of our lives and instead trust that, like everything else, our challenges will pass in time. Cultivating peace through simplicity and contentment. In Buddhist practice, there is a strong emphasis on simplicity and contentment. These are antidotes to the endless striving and attachment that characterizes much of modern life. When we simplify our lives, whether by reducing our material possessions, slowing down our pace, or letting go of unnecessary desires, we make space for peace to arise. We learn to appreciate what we have and live with a sense of gratitude, rather than constantly reaching for more. Contentment is a key aspect of this simplicity. When we are content with what we have and who we are in the present moment, we are no longer driven by the longing for something else. We stop comparing ourselves to others and start living in harmony with ourselves and the world around us. This contentment creates a deep sense of satisfaction that does not depend on external circumstances. It is an internal state of peace that comes from the wisdom of knowing that all we need for true happiness is already within us. The peace found in compassion and loving kindness. Buddhism teaches that true peace is not just the absence of disturbance, but the presence of love, compassion, and kindness. When we cultivate these qualities in our lives, we naturally create an environment of peace, both within ourselves and in our interactions with others. Compassion allows us to see the world through the eyes of others and to respond with understanding and care. Loving kindness helps us to cultivate a warm, open heart, free from the judgments and barriers that divide us from others. Through these practices, we begin to understand that peace is not a solitary experience but one that arises in relationship, with ourselves, with others, and with the world around us. When we extend compassion and kindness to all beings, we create a ripple effect of peace that spreads beyond our own hearts and minds. The root of inner peace. In conclusion, the root of inner peace lies not in external circumstances or possessions, but in the cultivation of mindfulness, the understanding of impermanence, and the release of attachment to the self. True peace comes from accepting things as they are, letting go of what we cannot control, and living in alignment with the natural flow of life. By understanding that all things are impermanent and interconnected, we are able to free ourselves from the bonds of craving and suffering. As we continue on the path of self-awareness and mindfulness, we gradually experience the profound peace that comes from living authentically and in harmony with the world. The root of peace is already within us, we simply need to cultivate it through our thoughts, actions, and understanding. When we do, we find that peace is not a distant goal to be attained, but a present reality to be experienced, moment by moment. Part 5. The Path to Inner Peace, the Noble Eightfold Path. In the teachings of Buddhism, the journey toward inner peace is not a distant goal, but a gradual process of cultivation and understanding. The Noble Eightfold Path offers a systematic approach to achieving a life of balance, wisdom, and tranquility. Among the components of this path, right view, right thought, and right mindfulness stand as pillars that guide the practitioner to a deeper awareness and a more peaceful existence. Right view. Seeing the world clearly. The first element of the Noble Eightfold Path, right view, or right understanding, refers to the ability to perceive the world as it truly is, without the distortion of delusion or bias. In everyday life, we are often clouded by our desires, fears, and personal biases, which shape how we perceive reality. These distortions prevent us from seeing things as they are, leading to misunderstandings, frustration, and suffering. In the Buddhist context, right view involves understanding the Four Noble Truths, which form the foundation of the Buddha's teachings. These truths are: 1. The truth of suffering. Dukkha life is full of challenges, dissatisfaction, and impermanence. 2. The truth of the cause of suffering. Samadaya suffering arises from attachment, craving, and ignorance. 3. The truth of the cessation of suffering. Nirodha. It is possible to end suffering by letting go of attachments and ignorance. 4. The truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Magga. The Noble Eightfold Path is the way to liberation and peace. When we cultivate right view, we begin to understand that suffering is not a personal flaw but a natural part of existence. We see that the world is ever-changing, and everything is impermanent. By accepting this, we stop clinging to fleeting pleasures and outcomes, allowing us to move beyond dissatisfaction. This shift in perspective is the beginning of wisdom, which leads to a more peaceful and fulfilling life. Right thought, cultivating the right mindset. The second element. Right thought, or right intention, relates to the mental attitudes that guide our actions and reactions. While right view helps us see the world clearly, right thought ensures that our thoughts align with our deeper understanding of reality. It involves cultivating thoughts that are free from greed, hatred, and delusion. Philosophically, right thought encourages us to foster thoughts of non-attachment, compassion, and renunciation. It calls for us to release the urge to control, to possess, and to dominate. By replacing negative and harmful thought patterns with those based on kindness, understanding, and selflessness, we begin to soften the grip of our ego and move closer to inner peace. One key practice of right thought is developing metta, loving kindness. By constantly nurturing positive, loving thoughts toward ourselves and others, we dissolve the barriers of resentment, jealousy, and fear that often block our path to peace. When we free ourselves from such negative thinking, we make room for calmness and clarity in our hearts and minds. Right mindfulness. The practice of presence. The third element of the path, right mindfulness, or right awareness, is perhaps one of the most transformative aspects of the Buddhist practice. Mindfulness is the ability to remain fully present in the moment, without being distracted by past regrets or future anxieties. It is a mental discipline that involves observing our thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations with a calm, non-reactive awareness. In daily life, we often live on autopilot, consumed by the demands of our busy schedules or lost in our internal narratives. This habitual mindlessness keeps us disconnected from the present and perpetuates stress, confusion, and dissatisfaction. Right mindfulness helps us step out of this cycle by teaching us to pay attention to our experiences with clarity and acceptance. Through right mindfulness, we practice observing our reactions to external events and our internal states without judgment. We learn to respond thoughtfully, rather than impulsively, to challenges and emotions. This conscious presence prevents us from getting caught up in the turbulence of the mind and brings us back to the peace of the present moment. In meditation, right mindfulness is often cultivated through practices like observing the breath, focusing on bodily sensations, or repeating a mantra. By practicing mindfulness in meditation and in our daily lives, we become more aware of the impermanence of our thoughts and feelings. This awareness reduces our attachment to them, and over time, it leads us to a state of inner peace. The interconnection of right view, right thought, and right mindfulness. While each of these elements of the Noble Eightfold Path can be practiced independently, they are deeply interconnected. Right view gives us the wisdom to see the world clearly, right thought shapes our mental responses in line with that wisdom. And right mindfulness allows us to observe our thoughts and actions in real time, guiding us back to the present moment. Together, they provide a comprehensive approach to cultivating peace. By seeing the world as it is, thinking with compassion and clarity, and remaining mindful in each moment, we begin to break free from the patterns of craving and aversion that perpetuate our suffering. As we practice these principles, we gradually shift from a state of discontent and restlessness to a state of calm, equanimity, and inner peace. Living the path in everyday life. The beauty of the Noble Eightfold Path is that it is not reserved for monks or spiritual seekers alone. It is a practical guide that can be integrated into our daily lives, no matter our circumstances. In our relationships, work, and personal struggles, we can apply right view, right thought, and right mindfulness to bring more peace and harmony to our lives. For example, when faced with a difficult situation at work or in a relationship, we can apply right view by remembering that everything is impermanent, and that no challenge is permanent. We can approach the situation with right thought, thinking kindly and non-judgmentally toward ourselves and others involved. Finally, we can practice right mindfulness by staying fully present, observing our emotions and reactions without becoming overwhelmed by them. Through these practices, we transform ordinary moments into opportunities for spiritual growth and inner peace. Rather than seeing challenges as threats to our well-being, we begin to see them as opportunities to apply the teachings of the Noble Eightfold Path and deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world. The path to peace is an ongoing journey. The journey to inner peace is not a one-time event, but a lifelong process of learning, practicing, and refining. The Noble Eightfold Path offers a clear and structured way to cultivate peace in our hearts and minds. By embracing right view, right thought, and right mindfulness, We lay the foundation for a life free from the turmoil of desire, fear, and attachment. As we continue to walk this path, we find that peace is not something we acquire externally, but something we awaken within ourselves. The more we practice, the more we realize that the peace we seek has always been here, waiting to be uncovered. It is a peace that comes from understanding, from letting go, and from living in harmony with the present moment. By walking the path with dedication and awareness, we move closer to the true peace that the Buddha spoke of, a peace that transcends external circumstances and resides deep within our hearts. Conclusion: true peace lies within. As we reach the end of this journey into understanding what truly brings peace, we realize that the essence of inner tranquility is not found in what we own or achieve, but in the profound understanding and ability to let go. For much of our lives, we chase after external validations, whether it's wealth, status, relationships, or accomplishments, with the hope that they will grant us the peace we so deeply desire. However, the teachings of the Buddha remind us that these external pursuits are impermanent, and they cannot provide lasting peace. In Buddhist philosophy, peace is not something that is acquired from the outside world. It is a state of mind that arises when we cease to search externally and begin to turn inward. This process of turning inward is not one of escape, but of deep self-awareness and understanding. It is about coming to terms with the impermanence of life, accepting the natural flow of events, and learning to live harmoniously with whatever arises in our experience. When we do this, peace is not a distant goal, it is the natural state of our minds, waiting to be uncovered. When we stop clinging to the transient and unstable elements of the world, we can see clearly that peace exists in the present moment, independent of external circumstances. It's in the stillness of our breath, in the quiet of our thoughts, and in the simplicity of accepting things as they are. Peace is not a prize to be won. It's a realization of what has always been present within us. The Buddha's teachings guide us in letting go of the desire for more, for control, for perfection, and for approval. By practicing mindfulness, cultivating compassion, and understanding the nature of suffering, we begin to loosen our attachments to the material world and to our own expectations. As we release these attachments, we open ourselves to the peace that comes from simply being present, simply existing, and simply accepting life's flow. True peace is a state of surrender, not surrendering to the chaos of life, but surrendering the need to control it. It's the wisdom of knowing that, while we may not control the events that unfold, we always have control over how we respond to them. This shift in perspective is the key to unlocking a life of tranquility and happiness. I invite you, dear viewers, to reflect on this truth. Peace is already within you. You don't need to seek it outside, you only need to open your heart to it, embrace it, and allow it to unfold naturally. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Life Lessons. Let's continue to share the wisdom of Buddhism and these invaluable life lessons, so we can all live in a world filled with peace, compassion, and understanding.